Two companies are now facing bylaw charges after a cyclist died on a stretch of Bloor Street after being hit by a truck. Now, a 24-year-old woman was killed after she appeared to have veered out of the cycling lane along Bloor near Avenue to avoid a large waste disposal bin that had been placed in the lane in front of her. Mass Contracting Limited has now been charged with the bylaw offence of cause encumbering of street, while Ontario Trucking and Disposal Limited is facing the same charge, plus cause dangerous condition, unauthorized street occupation, and failed to provide proper signage warning public of obstruction in street. Each charge can be paid with a $200 fine. There is still no word from police on whether any criminal charges will follow. But joining us now to talk more about this with reaction to this bylaw charges is lawyer and biking advocate David Shelnut. Good to talk to you this morning, David. These fines, $200 fines, someone's life has been lost. This might add up to $1,000. Is this going to send enough of a message? Does this do anything to really change the actions of companies like this?
It's a tough question to answer. You know, on the one hand, this never happens. So even the bare minimum in accountability for companies who present hazards in roadways is good. You know, it is a slap on the wrist. We've got to look at our entire system of construction work, accountability, and road safety in Toronto. And if you are putting people at risk, and God forbid you injure or kill someone in doing it, perhaps you should not be able to work in the city again.
So what should have happened, David? What should have been in place there to have avoided a tragedy like this from unfolding?
Sure. I think consistent penalties like this, so people know that if they do something wrong, they're going to be penalized for it, and they're going to be severe. But we also need a mobility squad like we have in Montreal. Construction is king in Toronto, and for many reasons, that's great. We need to be building this city, and that's fantastic. But it can't be the Wild West out there. We have to have bylaw and enforcement officers going around and ensuring that if you have created a safety plan for your construction site as it interacts with pedestrians, cyclists, and other road users, that you're following it. And simply right now, we don't do that. We allow people to do construction in Toronto. We don't monitor it at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, construction is really everywhere in the city, and there are sort of, lanes changed, lanes moved around, pylons up, all kinds of things, a lot of distractions. But if there's proper signage, that would certainly help, it would seem. Do you think, David, though, that is this an inevitable part of Toronto life, or should this be something that could absolutely be avoided? Something like this, where you put something in a bike lane, forcing bikes into traffic?
For sure. We allege to be a world-class city, and so we ought to be able to move our people around it safely. The bare minimum of not blocking bike lanes, or if you do, creating warnings well in advance, letting people know, hey, there's a detour, you can go this way, to avoid having to merge with fast-moving traffic. They're all things that we can do. We just aren't doing any of it. Yeah.
So I've got a couple of questions on a two-parter here. So on the one hand, the police haven't said whether or not any charges are being laid. But David, I'm sure you've also seen another story that we've been running this morning about someone who recorded police officers parked, I believe, in a bike lane to sort of get out of their car to get a cup of coffee here. So how does that, I know they're completely separate incidents, but how does that play into it when you see the police in some cases breaking not their own laws, but the laws?
Nick, we see these as interconnected. If the people at the top who are enforcing the rules of the road are not abiding by them, then why would any other citizen do that? We believe it was a loading zone, perhaps not a bike lane, so let me not put them there, but we have pictures of them in bike lanes across the city coming out of Tim Hortons. Now, if they're on an emergency call, they got their lights on, and they're helping someone, totally fine. You can block a bike lane. But when you're coming out of Timmy's or Starbucks, and you're rude to people about it, it really sets the wrong message. We pay these folks an awful lot of money to keep us safe. They ought to be leading by example here.
David, of course, you're known as a cycling lawyer. I've been following you for years here. What do you hear from cyclists just day to day about what they're seeing on the street? Because these are just the stories. This is a tragic outcome in the one case of the woman killed here. But, what do you hear just in general from cyclists on the streets of Toronto, just day to day?
It's, I don't want to be doom and gloom, because we all love cycling in this city, and going to the island or along the waterfront is fantastic. But the level of angst and anger against cyclists is palpable out there. People coming out of the pandemic stressed and really feeling pressure is economic and otherwise, it bleeds into how they act behind the wheel. So we're really seeing a lot of anti-cyclist violence out there. I mean, heck, you see politicians touting it as well. We unfortunately are getting a lot of calls, cyclists being hit by drivers turning left without looking across a bike lane, people on their cell phones, you name it.
Yeah, okay. That is a sad reality, and hopefully some things change. Biking lawyer David Shelnut joining us live this morning. David, appreciate the time.